Hello and welcome to today's LSI webinar with Jane Kennedy and Robert Crow. The topic is on the 4 actions of instructional leadership that will turn your dream school into a reality. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. You, the audience, will be in listening mode only, but we want this to be an interactive webinar. So if you look at your GoToWebinar control panel, you see that there's a question box. You can type in any question for the presenters throughout the presentation, and at the end of the webinar, there'll be a Q&A session when we will answer questions from all audience members. And we'll also monitor those questions for any technical issues you may run into. This is a recorded webinar, and we will follow up with an email once the recording is available, so you can go back and review the information covered today or share with your colleagues. And with that, I'd like to turn over to our presenters, co-authors of the book Developing Instructional Leadership and co-founders of the Elevated Achievement Group, Jane Kennedy and Robert Crow. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or I guess morning, depending on what coast everyone is on. As was just said, I'm Jane Kennedy. I'm here today with my colleague Bob Crow, and we get the privilege of spending the next hour with everyone to talk about the 4 actions of instructional leadership that will turn your dream school into a reality. So in this hour, we're really going to talk about what are those practical, validated techniques that'll transform a school environment where the students, the teachers, the administrators, everyone is working collectively towards a common goal of increasing student ownership. Next slide, please. So as I said, this is myself, Jane Kennedy, and my colleague Bob Crow. We are co-owners of Elevated Achievement Group. And together, Bob and I have been in education for, gosh, Bob, I think over 60 years combined.
Sure.
Sorry. That sounds like such an odd number, but it's been a long time. So we've been doing this for a long time. But a couple of years ago, we were sitting with the president of a school board. And he asked us a question. He said, so in our experience, what is the biggest factor that determines if a school can make successful changes necessary to impact student learning? And without hesitation, Bob and I just kind of looked at each other and then said together, leadership. Because here's what we know, that real change cannot occur if it involves individuals making individual decisions based on what they think is needed. If we want to make a collective lift with everyone working towards the same goal, focused on student learning, that cannot occur without leadership. It's imperative. And so today, what we want to share with you are, what are those specific actions that are needed for leadership to really impact student achievement, that collective goal? So we're going to share with you those actions today. Before we get into it though, Bob, do you want to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about today?
Sure. Hi, my name is Bob Crow. Like Jane said, co-owner of Elevated Achievement Group. We've been doing this work as Elevated Achievement Group for about the last 8 years. To Jane's point about, the 20 years before that, working in a variety of schools with a variety of students, and then presenting, supporting teachers and administrators across the nation for the last chunk of years. What I'm excited about is the ability to put all of our work into a book. And you see all the tabs because that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think I want to make sure that even though it looks like, oh my God, a research book, I don't have time for a research book, Jane and I are very, very clear. It's actually a toolkit. That's part of what we want to show you today is what are the tools you need to keep developing your instructional leadership skills. And so to that end, I think we're going to get going. Jane and I have decided that we're going to turn our faces off mainly so the screen can get bigger in terms of what the slides are you're seeing. You're going to see on the right-hand side that you can download the PowerPoint. You also have our website that you can connect to and be able to find anything that Jane and I are talking about. So let's get going.
Excellent.
Okay. First thing I'm going to ask you to think about is think about your dream school. Even though the majority of what we're talking about today is for school site administrators, this information about instructional leadership is also pertinent for instructional coaches, for anyone at a district office, anyone leading a team at a school, so a department chair, anyone who really is looking at figuring out how to support others to do their work. You got in this job because you wanted to see something that you either experienced that was strong, or you want to turn the place where you're working into something stronger. So think about your dream school. Yes, the pie in the sky dream school. As you think about that school, what are the students doing? What are they saying? How are they acting? What are the teachers doing? What are they saying? How are they acting? And what are you doing? We bet that when you thought about the students, you said, well, the students at my dream school all want to come to school, all love learning. They understand the value of school. They understand that this building that they enter is built specifically for them, and they are there to learn, 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 learn. Okay. What are the teachers doing? Oh, in my dream school, the teachers are attending every meeting and every professional development with a song in their hearts and a skip in their step. Right, Jane? Yeah, I know. And they're there 100% making decisions all the time in terms of what is best for our kids. And what are you doing? You are looking at this beloved school and saying, gosh darn, aren't I lucky? Jane and I are here to tell you today that all can come true. Not tomorrow, not with a snap of your fingers, but with hard work, if you truly are understanding what are the skills needed to take someone there. And so the first thing we want to do is kind of define, what do we mean by instructional leadership? So what is instructional leadership? Very simple definition for us, and there's really one word that pops out at this. Jane, would you read that quote for us?
Certainly. Of all the skills a principal needs to succeed, the most vital in terms of increasing academic achievement is that of instructional leadership.
So for us, the key word is skill. It is a skill. All skills can be strengthened. All skills can be developed. Every one of you can become stronger in the skill of instructional leadership. Some of you might say, oh, I don't even know what they are yet. We're going to define them for you. Some can say, I already have them all. We're going to say, great. We're going to give you some tips about how you make it even stronger. What does that look like? So for us, the notion of instructional leadership is that it is a skill. This is different than if we had called the book Developing an Instructional Leader. For us, there are two differences. Sometimes when you hear a term like instructional leader, it can be almost too broad. It's like saying, oh, a ballet dancer or an Olympic athlete. These are things that without a bunch of talent, you cannot be. We don't believe that. That's why we're titling the book Developing Instructional Leadership, because everyone in any kind of leadership role can increase their skills. So Jane, will you read what we say right there around what is the skill of instructional leadership?
The skill of instructional leadership is made up of actions that can be seen and heard. And we believe the actions of instructional leadership can be developed.
So what we're looking at and what I really want to talk about, so I'm reading from the book for a second. So here's the instructional leader part. Here is your role. Without a competent, caring individual in the principal's position, The task of school reform is very difficult. Reform can be initiated from outside the school or stimulated from within. But in the end, it is the principal who implements and sustains the changes through the inevitable roller coaster of euphoria and setbacks. So we're here to say the administrator of a school site is crucial. The skill of instructional leadership is really, and again, I'm reading from the book, it's important to state that when we talk about instructional leadership, we are talking about the art of inspiring a group of people toward achieving a set of goals for learning and academic achievement. So it's instructional leadership, and you are leading a group of people, and that can be your teachers. It's going to be your teachers. It's going to be your students. It's going to be any support staff. It's going to be your instructional coaches. It's going to be anyone. So their job is to lead them toward achieving a common set of goals for learning and academic achievement. So what we'd like to do is kind of share with you what are those actions. We have a framework that you are used to seeing. So it's something you're going to be able to access very quickly. And then Jane and I want to kind of go through with you. So what are those specific actions? So when you're looking at the 4 actions of instructional leadership, you are really looking at how do you work with your staff as a group of learners. And a group of learners needs support in curriculum, needs support in instruction, needs support in assessment, and needs support in climate. Your job is to lead with a school-wide initiative, the curriculum, the instruction, the assessment, and the climate of that initiative. The action of leading is different in each one. So for the first one, when we're looking at curriculum, this is the action of determining the goals of an initiative focused on student achievement. In today's webinar, we're really going to be talking about what are those initiatives that you know through research are going to push student achievement. However, all of the information we're giving you can support any initiative you are leading at your school. So we're not going to talk about something like, how do I reorganize the lunch schedule? But you're going to see that this information we're giving you is going to help you do that more effectively and efficiently. We're really going to look at initiatives. They can be initiatives that are top down from your district to your school that you need to lead. They can be initiatives that your school has determined based on who your students are, needs to occur at the school that you are leading. It can be an initiative for one single department. You might say, oh, the math department needs to really have support in terms of using their new resources, their new materials. And so when we're looking at that, it could be something as broad as implementation of the new textbook. It could be implementation of a course scope and sequence. It could be looking at implementing a new instructional strategy like reciprocal teaching, GLAD strategies, things for English learners. It could be an initiative on how to use a data protocol to drive differentiation. It could be looking at something in terms of building student ownership. It could be also what we're living in now is the initiative of distance learning. So when we're looking at this, one of the first things you're going to need to lead, and you're going to have a team, you're going to determine the goals of the initiative focused on student achievement. Once you determine that goal, if we move to the right-hand side in instruction, you're going to lead the support of the implementation of that initiative. It also means, as we know, you're going to lead the monitoring the implementation of that initiative. And we know that a team delivers stronger results than an individual. So with this initiative, you're going to build school-wide collaboration for the initiative. So for the next chunk of the webinar, Jane and I are going to go through each of these 4. This is the broad action. We're going to clarify it. We're going to get you thinking about an initiative you might have at your school site, and then we're going to clarify even deeper in terms of what are some of the actions. Jane and I are going to be sharing a lot of information, but one of the things that we don't have time to share now, which is in the book, is the fact that we have lots and lots of examples from different schools, different types of leaders about how they've implemented these actions and how they've taken charge of them. So let's go to the first one, which is curriculum. The broad action is to determine the goals of an initiative focused on student achievement. Now, when principals hear the word determine, they go, "Oh my God, I don't know what that should be." It means you have to lead determining the goals of an initiative. So it could be, if it's top down from the district office, you need to find out from the district office, what are the goals? What does this look like? So you need to determine what those are, because you can then share them with your staff. It could be that you have a leadership team at your school site and you're determining the goals together. This also leads to buy-in, because you have more than one person determining what the goals are. The issue really is you have to lead the notion, the action of determining the goals. It doesn't mean you have to determine them yourself. You have to lead how you determine the goals of an initiative focused on student achievement. If you have led this to the highest degree, this is what your teachers and staff should be able to articulate. Next slide, please. So, your teacher should be able to answer the questions clearly. What is the initiative? They know exactly what it is. They know what success criteria looks like. They know the purpose of the initiative. They're super clear what is going on and how it helps students and how it helps themselves. So I want you to think about, to what degree can your teachers answer the following questions? What is the initiative? What is the purpose of the initiative? What are the success criteria of the initiative? So I'm going to ask you right now to just think of an initiative that is being implemented at your school site, in your district. Think of your teachers. Say Bob or Jane walked into your school and we went to a group of teachers and we said, "Hey, what's the initiative?" How clear would they be? Would they be able to answer that? Always. Sometimes. No, never. What is the purpose of the initiative? How does this help you and your students? They always can answer that with with high clarity. Sometimes if they're kind of making guesses, they never thought about the purpose. They just thought they had to do it. What are the success criteria of the initiative? If Jane and I asked them, what does this look like at the very end when the whole entire school has successfully implemented this initiative? Could they always tell you exactly what they look like? Could they mostly tell you, but they would know where to go? Rarely tell you. They never even thought about it. So we're going to go to a poll slide in a second, but I want you just thinking, how would your teachers answer the questions? To what degree? All righty, let's go to the poll. So you get to click on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from never to always. Let's see our results. Okay, a lot of sometimes, a lot of mostly's, not necessarily always, and a few, yay, no nevers. Okay, so we're really kind of looking at the middle range. That tells me we have a group of administrators, a group of instructional leaders who know that their job is to share information with their teachers. But what we're going to talk about is what can we do to even increase those scores. So the next slide, please. So when we're looking at the instructional leadership, as you're determining the goals of the initiative, these are the 4 actions within that are going to help you increase everyone's understanding of what that is. So one is really clarifying the goals of the initiative. So this really answers, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How is it going to support students? How will it support teachers? The second one is also crucial because the leader needs to integrate the goals of the initiative with other expectations. Teachers need to know, how is what we're doing and talking about right now going to support and work in conjunction with all the other things I have to do? So for a lot of teachers, it feels like, well, here's a new thing and it pushes everything off. You're going to have more bang for your buck if you are able to integrate the goals of the new initiative with other current expectations. Determining the goals of the initiative also includes providing the resources needed to implement the initiative. And these are physical things that are needed to ensure that this goes off without a hitch. So obviously, if you're asking someone to implement a new textbook, then they're going to need all the materials from the textbook. Obviously, if you're going to ask them to implement a new course scope and sequence, they're going to need all of those materials that explain to them what is the course and the scope and sequence. If it's going to be to implement a strong data protocol, they're going to need all of the information regarding the data protocol. The last one, which is crucial, is share this information with the staff. And Jane and I always say, and overshare this information with the staff. So here's what we always say. If you think that you have sufficiently shared this information with the staff, you're wrong. You're going to need to do it even more. And if you say, oh, my staff got it, ask them, what is the goal of the initiative? If they can't tell you, you don't beat them up. You just realize, oh, I need to share it more often. So again, this is how we know that you as the administrator can take these actions of instructional leadership and even strengthen what you're doing right now. So I want you just kind of thinking about curriculum for a second. It really is around the initiative. And this is just clarifying, integrating, and providing what the initiative is all about. Now we want to really look at, okay, that's clarity, yay. How do we support our teachers and how do we support our team to get there? And that's how we're going to look at instruction. Hey, Jane, do you want to take over?
Sure. So, Bob, starting with curriculum is imperative. I mean, that's where we have to start. So we have to first determine what is our goal. We have to make sure we understand what's our success, what are we working towards, and why are we even doing this, and make sure everyone knows it. But what comes next is, once we've determined that, we then have to figure out the instruction of the initiative. So how are we going to support the implementation of it? This could include any of the supports we're providing, the professional learning opportunities, anything that's going to really make sure that the teachers have the time and the space, the information to learn and be able to implement that initiative at the highest level. So once our teachers understand the curriculum components, the what they're learning, how they're going to show mastery while they're learning it, then we have to determine, but what's the best way for them to learn? And so some of the things we need to think about will include, that was my dramatic pause, next slide. We need to think about some things. So what supports do they need to receive? So what are the specific supports, professional learning, opportunities, etc., that they're going to need that are going to tie directly to that determined outcome? And it may be that I, as the instructional leader, I'm the one developing the plan, or maybe others are developing it with me. But what's critical is, do our teachers know what that plan is? Can they state, oh, here's the support I'm going to be provided throughout this X time period that will help me as an individual reach that goal at the highest level, which they, as we said in curriculum, can actually define. We have to then figure out, but when will they receive these supports? Because what we're not talking about is a professional development. We're not talking about one-time opportunity where we get information, we send folks off, and we hope that something comes from it. We're talking about professional learning. We are talking about what is our approach over time that is going to provide teachers with the support, the space, the time that they need to develop new skills necessary for whatever this initiative may be. How will they have the opportunities to practice over time, but do they know what those are? This is going to talk about if we're looking for a collective lift, I can't just understand what is my role. I need to see the big picture. I need to understand how all of this fits together. And throughout this, we know that it has to be delivered in some way that's engaging, that's effective, that's efficient. Adult learning theory tells us that. But it can't just be engaging and efficient. It has to be effective towards that outcome. What's interesting to Bob and I is when we speak with administrators and we ask them, what's your goal? What's your instructional plan? They're super, for the most part, are able to tell us that. When we go to work with the teachers and we ask them, what are we doing today and where is this heading? They're not always as clear on that. They are often clued into what's happening in the moment, but do they have the big plan? So now I'm going to ask you, like we did before, think about yourself. Think about your teachers. Could be an initiative you're currently involved in, could be a prior initiative. But when you think about it, to what degree can your teachers answer the following questions? With this initiative, what support will you receive? When will you receive support? And how will you work together with others to implement this initiative? So take a moment and think about your teachers. With clarity, can they always answer those questions? That would be a 5. All the way down to what we saw before, never. They don't have a clue. So let's go ahead and put up another poll and let's think about, I want you all to respond, where are your teachers in regards to instruction? To what degree can they answer those questions?
Jane, I want to add one thing. So Jane and I work with a lot of teachers and in a lot of schools. And so sometimes when we're delivering PD, we ask them, why are you sitting here? And in many cases, they say, because my principal told me. So if you're thinking, ooh, that's what my teachers would say, that means they're not super clear on why that support is needed for that initiative. So I just want to kind of give an example of what Jane and I tend to hear
Thank
when
you.
working with
Well,
folks.
let's see how folks responded. Oh, we lost our, there we go. Oh, okay, this one's a little bit more of the sometimes. Good, good, good. Only a few rarelys and some mostlies. So once again, really strong in the middle of that sometimes. So what is it we need to do if we really believe that it should be always? If we really want it to be always, these are the actions of instructional leadership. Instructional leadership must clarify how that initiative will be supported and implemented. We have to share with clarity what is the plan. That means that we have to have established a plan for professional learning opportunities. And notice a couple things there. Professional learning, not just a professional development moment, but learning over time and opportunities, plural. Because here's what we know, learning is a process. And if we are working towards change, that means that people have to actually develop new skills and change what they've been doing. So they're going to need opportunities to learn, well, what is this new skill or information or resource, whatever my initiative may be. They're going to need opportunities to practice it, perhaps to see models of it, to get quality feedback on it, and to continue to develop over time. So as an instructional leader, we have to establish a plan for professional learning opportunities. We then need to schedule professional learning opportunities that directly related to the initiative. So how are we going to plan so there is the time and the space for that learning to occur? And we cannot reiterate that last one enough. How are we going to share this information with the staff? One of the pieces in the book, which we won't get into today, but we do talk about in the book, is that we know there's a difference between what we say and what people hear. And so we know that if it is critical information, if we believe in collective lift, if we believe that in order for that to happen, everyone needs to understand the curriculum, the instruction, the assessment, and the climate of this plan, then we have to figure out how we share it with them in a variety of ways so that they hear it, they internalize it, and they can articulate it themselves. So the stronger we get on leading these actions, the more reward we're going to see in regards to everyone working together to successfully implement that initiative. And so from instruction, we then move to our assessment. So we've talked about the curriculum. We have to have clarity on what it is we're learning, what are we working towards, what's our goal, and why are we doing this? How is this going to impact student learning? From there, we went to instruction. We have to have a well-developed, thoughtful plan that will support each and every individual in getting there. And finally, we know we have to be able to monitor the implementation of the initiative. We call this the assessment. This is how we're going to measure the impact of the instruction, our professional learning plan, towards that determined outcome, our curriculum. So we have to figure out along the way, where are we progressing? Where are we not? Do we need to go faster? Do we need to go slower? Do we need to alter our plan? This is work that's going to be led by an instructional leader, but it has to be known by everybody. And so what we don't want to do, we would never accept this in the classroom where we teach and then we assess. We know that we want to be assessing for learning along the way. And so we need to make sure we have a very thoughtful plan in there on how we're going to monitor the implementation of the initiative. And this means that each and every participant, stakeholder in the initiative has to be able to answer the following questions. How will you know that you have implemented this initiative at the highest level? So that means that they need to know, what is the success we're looking for? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How will I know that I have reached it? Where am I on that continuum? Each person has to be able to answer and understand, how will you receive feedback regarding progress of the implementation of the initiative? So they need to know, well, when am I going to get feedback? How am I going to get feedback that's specific to my learning? And notice that term is learning, not learned. So how are we going to really monitor how they're learning, how they're progressing along the way? Do they know how that's going to happen? And we need to make sure that they are super clear on how will they receive supports if they are struggling, and that's okay. But what does that support look like? So I think you all are getting the pattern by now. So I want you to think about, to what degree can your teachers answer the following questions? How will you know that you have implemented the initiative at the highest level? How will you receive feedback regarding the progress of the implementation of the initiative? And what supports will you receive if you are struggling? Take just a minute to think about that. Think about your teachers and what degree they would be able to answer those questions. And let's go ahead and put the poll up. What are you thinking, Bob? Gonna be about the same?
Yes. I don't know. It might, I don't know, because a lot of teachers sometimes feel that the monitoring is more punitive than supportive. So I don't know. I know administrators don't feel that way, but we work with a lot of teachers who misinterpret what I think the administrators are trying to do. So I don't know, Jane, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
All right, let's see. Okay, this is our first time we've got some nevers. Interesting, but still in the majority of them are in the sometimes. It's a little bit more spread out. Still not at that always. So let's think about what are those actions if we believe that our goal is that, yes, everyone should be able to answer those questions at the highest level. So these are those actions of instructional leadership in assessment. This means that we have confirmed, clarified, overstated, shared. What is the success criteria of the initiative? What are we working towards? Can we codify that? Have we been able to say where we're heading specifically? That means as a leader, we have established a method for monitoring the implementation of the initiative. We are super clear on how we're going to be able to monitor. When are we going to look for? What are we looking for? Have we shared with the teachers, to Bob's point just a moment ago, if we come in and we're looking, what are we looking for? This is to support you. Here are the specific actions that we're looking for. And here's how we'll know that we're working towards them, or that they're working, that we're starting to see them, because we're going to give you super clear feedback on them. And if we established a method for continued supportive implementation, many times for this, it's really leaders that are thinking the long game. They are over budgeting, over planning, overthinking, because we can always end it early. But if our teachers are struggling, if we're not there, how do we continue the work so it doesn't die off? So it doesn't become something like, oh, one more thing we're doing. And then that final one, you know, this is the most critical one. How are we going to share this information with the staff? How are we going to make sure that they are super clear on, we are working on this together, and here's the role of monitoring, and here's how monitoring is going to support you in achieving that goal. So Bob, we've really talked about the three critical ones: the curriculum, the what are we heading towards? What's our instructional plan to get there? How are we going to monitor it? But here's what we do know. If we don't have a collaborative climate that really allows for collective, everyone working together, this could die off. So do you want to talk to them a little bit about what is instructional leadership and climate?
Sure. What we're really looking at, you'll notice here, to build a school-wide collaboration for the initiative. So we're really looking at, with instructional leadership, what does collaboration, what does teamwork, what does the collective lift look like for an initiative? Now, if your initiative is a positive school and teachers all love each other, you're going to want to actually then clarify, what does that look like at the end? What we're really going to talk about is when you or your team, building that collaboration, determined the initiative, when you and your team, building in that collaboration, are supporting the initiative, and when you and your team build in that collaboration for monitoring the initiative, you are building in, and you're beginning to start looking at very specific ways that you are building school-wide collaboration. In school-wide collaboration, it also means, next slide, please. Everyone is super clear about some specific things. So it's not a hope teachers will get along and all be a part of it. It is a direct focus that you're going to have to ensure that everyone is pulling in the same direction, which means every single person involved in the initiative, so some are school-wide, some might be by a department. When you talk to anyone involved and you ask them, what is your role in the implementation of the initiative? They have an answer. They know specifically what is their role. If they're a teacher, they know their role. If they are an instructional support, they know their role. If they're an instructional coach, they know their role. If they are the administrator, a principal, or an AP, they know their specific role. And everyone else knows the other roles. How will the teachers support each other in the implementation of the initiative? They're all in this together, so what does that look like? Jane talked about what it could look like when it comes to instruction and assessment, but how do you build in what those opportunities look like? So again, you might be thinking, oh, it goes curriculum, instruction, assessment, climate, but some of you are thinking, oh, we start with climate and build the other way. It doesn't matter as long as they're all working together. And then what's the thing is, how will the teachers be supported to take risks in the implementation of the initiative? This goes hand in hand with the assessment piece, because a lot of people, teachers do not like when principals come in and observe them, because they think it is, I must be perfect or I'm going to be chewed up. We need them to take risks. We need them to be thinking about, what can I do along the way, fall on my face, but the falling on my face is the learning. So again, think of your teachers, think about their understanding of their role in initiative. Is it something they're doing, or is it something they're really owning? So kind of think about, if you were to talk to your teacher and ask them, what is your role in the implementation of the initiative? How will the teachers support each other in the implementation of the initiative? And how will the teachers be supported to take risks in the implementation of the initiative? To what degree could they answer those questions? Let's take the poll. You guys know the drill. Let's see what people said. Okay, a little more evenly spread out. Again, a lot of sometimes. And when I say sometimes, I think you might be thinking, well, some teachers could, some teachers couldn't. You might be thinking some teachers can some of the times. So again, as we're looking at these are kind of broad categories. We see some people where you have focused on building a strong collaborative school site. So they're always going to be able to say how they can help each other out. A couple of nevers, a couple of rarelys, the bulk at sometimes and mostly.
Yeah, but we have some always, Bob.
Pardon me?
We have some always.
Oh, I thought I mentioned that. Yes, you have some always. Yay, always. Jane always listens to Bob. That's what that tells me.
Stop it.
Okay, let's go. So again, oh, next one. So again, this is what an instructional leader, what are their actions, instructional leadership actions. And again, it doesn't mean that you as the administrator have to determine them all, but you can get a team to identify the role of each stakeholder in the implementation of the initiative. If I'm a teacher involved in an initiative that is going to support my kids to learn to higher degrees, I want to know clearly what is my role. I want to know clearly what is the role of that instructional coach who's going to walk into my classroom. I want to know clearly what is the role of an outside professional learning team, someone like Elevated Achievement Group. What is their role when they're coming into the school? And what is the role of the administrator when you're in my classroom? What is the role of everybody? So I can be clear about how we're all pulling together. I also recognize that out loud on purpose, we need to foster cooperation among and between all the stakeholders. What does that look like? You're going to have teachers on your staff who know how to do that really well. Get them on the team to help you figure out how do you do that on purpose and not just hope teachers get along. And that is because you're going to establish a plan for collaboration. Again, share this information with the staff. So collaboration can be talked about, cooperation can be talked about, and can be addressed and can be expected. And you can let your staff know that you're giving your opportunities to work together, even more effectively and efficiently. Next slide. I hope oh, well, there's our book. Okay, so it is a toolkit, and I thought it was going to be a different slide. So basically, it is a toolkit. So this is what I said earlier, and as you know, it is a toolkit that its framework is around the notion of curriculum, which is determining the initiative, instruction, which is supporting the initiative, assessment, which is monitoring the initiative, and climate, which is building a cooperative group of stakeholders around the initiative. So it's a toolkit because it clearly lays out what Jane and I have been talking about, and it also gives lots and lots of examples about how different schools have implemented a variety of initiatives. We know that if you go into the book, you will find examples of initiatives you have either been implementing or are implementing. So it offers tools for planning. So these would be questions for you to think about as you are, in this case, clarifying the goals of the initiative. So you're going to see a lot of sheets that look like this.
And what I like about that, Bob, is it really breaks down into those specific details. So what we shared was even a little bit broader, but for this example, so when you're clarifying the goals, but what are those specific things I need to think about as I'm planning and really beginning to define the goal of the initiative?
So there's a lot of planning tools. There's a lot of reflecting tools. So that's what we've been asking you to do today, is how have these things been working at your school site? So again, one of the skills of instructional leadership is the ability to reflect on your role and what you have done. So it really gives you a chance to think about how well and how often did you identify the role of each stakeholder in the implementation of the initiative by offering the following supports. So you get to think about, oh, I did that, I didn't do that. That's where I need to pump up what I'm doing so that I have stronger people following me. It could also be, oh my gosh, I do that really well. I need to know it specifically, because if someone says, hey, Joe, how did you get that happening at your school site? You can give them a strong answer. So lots of tools for reflecting. Next, please. We also know, as we've talked about, tools for communicating. So again, our whole notion is you need to over-communicate. So these are just examples of how principals have over-communicated. You will see yourself reflected in it. You might say, well, I told them once, they didn't hear me. We're saying, well, then tell them again. Honestly, you need to tell them as many times as you need to until you can ask them the question and they can answer it as you know is the highest possible understanding. Okay. Next, there's tools for giving feedback. So we're also looking at when you're in a classroom doing an observation. I know a lot of us as administrators feel it's our job to make statements about what we're seeing. But we need to build people who will follow us, and we need to do that by understanding what they're thinking. So our tools for feedback are really around the whole notion of question-driven feedback. And we, in the book, we offer a lot of supports in terms of how do you ask questions about a specific lesson, or how do you ask questions about an initiative. So again, you're going to see a lot of tools that are going to help you deliver stronger feedback. And then also recognizing who our teachers are and who we're working with. So you might have teachers who go-getters, super strong motivation and super strong capacity to do everything you're talking about. Well, you're going to want to deal with them and support them differently than if you have someone around this initiative who really doesn't have the skill because this is too new for them, or the will because they're scared to take chances. So again, we're going to show you how you deal with a group of teachers and how you differentiate their support. So again, we have tools that help you differentiate when you're working with the different people on your staff. Thank you. So basically, it is a toolkit. And so now you're saying, oh my gosh, how can I get my copy? Well, there's two places. You can, you're really going to be buying it from Learning Sciences International. There's their website, and there's a QR code. We also want to let you know that you can go to Elevated Achievement Group website, and you will find the book. You'll also find some articles about the book. You'll find a sample chapter, and you can purchase the book through the website, because it will take you to the Learning Sciences International bookstore. And we also want to let you know we are going to be presenting at the Building Expertise Educators Conference that LSI puts on every single year. This year it's June 23, 24, 25, and I think it is hoping to be some on-site, and obviously a lot of it will be virtual. So just something to think about. When you download the packet, you will have all of these URLs at your fingertips. So don't worry if you're like trying to take a picture of the page or anything. You can just download the presentation in a PDF. It's on there to the right, and well, it's wherever you put the screen actually. And then what else? Anything else on this? Are we done?
No, I was going to say also on our website, you'll find other articles about specific to leadership, but also for supporting how we're supporting our parents in a virtual environment, how we're supporting students. So there's a wealth of resources that you are free to use there as well on our website. So feel free to take a look at it. We are hopeful that we will get to see some of you, maybe virtually or live at the LSI conference. We do want to thank LSI for hosting this today and giving us an opportunity to talk to any of you. Leslie, were there any questions that need to be addressed?
No questions yet, but you know, there's still time to get your questions in. If you have any questions, any of the attendees out there, feel free to type them into the question box and we will answer them for you.
Otherwise, we wanted to thank all of you for your time today. We have really enjoyed sharing with you the actions of instructional leadership and how we can support it.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's the book, the place to buy it. But other than that, we hope that you learned a couple new things today. And like Jane said, we hope to see you at some point in the future. And thank you guys for attending.